Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Greater Good. This show is sponsored by the San Diego Harbor Police Foundation, where we bring on people that I believe have something significant to offer in terms of giving back to our communities locally and nationally. And today, I'm really excited to welcome Major General William Walker.
Good afternoon.
General, how are you? My gosh, it's so great to see you again.
It's great to see you, Jeff. Congratulations on a magnificent gala. It was really a privilege to attend. How am I doing? I'm blessed.
Well, I hope we're all blessed at some level, that's for sure. Yeah, I met General Walker just recently. He came as a guest to our gala, our our inaugural gala, I might add, here in San Diego, and just having you in the room was amazing. And I saw that you really got to reach out and meet a lot of people here in San Diego, people that I respect a great deal that support our organization. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having it.
Well, I can't even be I don't even know where to start with your career. My goodness. You are such a perfect example of the American dream in terms of where you came from and what you've accomplished. And I don't normally read the bios on the people that I'm going to be talking to, but your 4-page bio just excited me so much. I actually read it twice, just because I couldn't believe that in a short time frame in your life you've accomplished so much. Um, but I have a
Very
question.
kind of you.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. I have a question. I had no idea the role of what the sergeant at arms is within our United States government. Since you were the sergeant at arms, can you tell me just a little bit of what is that job all about? How did you get it?
Sure. So I was the 38th Sergeant at Arms of the U.S. House of Representatives since 1791. First African American. I'm very proud of that. How did I get it? I believe, well, God, but Speaker Pelosi nominated me, and I was unanimously voted on by all of the members of the House of Representatives.
Mm,
I believe what led them to select me was the response of January 6th when I was the commanding general of the District of Columbia National Guard.
mm,
And at one point, between January 6th until May of 2021, we started out at the all-time high, over 30,000 guardsmen, Army and Air, in the Capitol. So that's if you're familiar with the Army, anybody's familiar with the Army, that's an Army Corps, that many service
mhm,
members.
right.
So we did a fairly good job. We got there late on January 6th, and that's another whole podcast why we were late.
Right.
But we got there and we assisted the United States Capitol Police, the Metropolitan Police Department, the Secret Service, and others. So we were, and I believe when I testified after that, that the speaker saw me and started asking about me, and others
Mm, mhm,
told her about me, and she asked me would I take the job. And I'll share this with you, Jeff. I was hesitant at first because you wore the cloth of the nation. You were a soldier,
right.
and I just wasn't ready. I only had 39 years in.
Mhm,
I wanted to get to 40.
right.
Speaker Pelosi, she just, there was no way to tell her no.
Right.
And then when I found out I would be the first African American to do it, I said, well, look, I have to do this. I prayed on it, talked to my wife about it.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing, amazing experience. It probably, next to my children being born and being married, it was right up there to be the sergeant at arms, to walk the president of the United States, welcome him into the Capitol, and
Mhm,
then walk him into a waiting room, and then walk him down the aisle, and then walk him out.
yeah.
The president of the United States, just amazing, and
That's
then other dignitaries. So to answer your question, the sergeant at arms is the chief law enforcement, security, protocol, and a whole other list of shoulders a whole list of responsibilities. But that position is a federal law enforcement position, and it is responsible for the safety and security of members of Congress, not just at the Capitol, but in transit,
Right.
and their families. We got a lot accomplished, and then all of the office buildings, the House side. So there's a Senate Sergeant at Arms who just happens to be a Lieutenant General in the Army.
Okay.
General Karen Gibson, just fascinating Army officer. Her whole career was active duty Army, where I was in and out of active guard and reserves. So I spent
Right.
time in all three components: the guard, the reserves, and on active duty. Served in Afghanistan on active duty.
Right.
But it was just a fascinating experience, and I will always remember it fondly.
Yeah. I just wonder how many people really understand what that job entails. I mean, it sounds enormous. What did you say? 30,000.
Oh, that was when I was the commanding general of the district.
Oh,
of
I see.
National
I
Guard.
see.
And I think that's, to answer your question, I think that's what led me to be selected by the Speaker of the House.
Right.
I think I came to her attention because of what the National Guard, and it was really not just the District of Columbia National Guard, 30,000. It was what we call Guard Nation. So the California Guard, the Michigan Guard, every single National Guard sent soldiers and airmen to the District of Columbia to support the National Guard as an organization.
Wow.
I think that's what I came to her attention on January 6th, 7th, and then we stayed there. So when I retired in April to take the position of Sergeant at Arms, we still had upwards to 15,000 guardsmen because we were around the clock at the Capitol.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah, but the job itself, federal law enforcement officer, chief security officer, chief protocol officer, and had a tremendous staff of just hardworking, dedicated, committed people that took care of the chamber, the House chamber, all of the different, along with the Capitol Police, all the entry and exit points, and made sure that the citadel of democracy, the People's House, could be visited safely and securely.
Safely.
Great
What
job.
an eye-opening experience January 6th was for the world, certainly our nation. And then, from my reading and understanding of what transpired subsequent to that, is that you made a lot of changes in protocol, providing safety and security for members, staff, and family while they outside of the Capitol area itself, and just monumental change.
Well, I hope they endure. I think they will. What we can't have, U.S. congressmen, they have to be elected, and we have to protect them from all kind of danger that's out here. So what I tried to appeal, I was able to secure funding for every single member to purchase a alarm at their house.
Oh,
and,
nice.
And believe it or not, in this day and age, many of them did not have any kind of intrusion system. So, and I just constantly was pushing that out, that you need. I've always had alarms. Even when I lived overseas as a DEA agent, I had all kind of burglar alarms in my house.
Yeah,
Advanced
absolutely.
lighting. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything that you've done for our country.
It was a privilege.
Oh, well, thank you. So you were a DEA agent going way back, and I heard you whisper at some point during our many conversations about you knew all about these amazing law enforcement officers in what is the series Narco, with the cartels down in South America, Mexico, and those areas. You knew all of those agents.
Yes, yes. Javier Pena, we worked together. Um, Joe Toff was the SES in Colombia, the senior executive, the most senior agent in Colombia during that time. Yeah, they wrote the book, but I worked with these guys in Miami and Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
DEA has a strength, authorized strength of about 5,800 special agents,
Mhm.
but there's only probably about 45, 4,700. When I became an agent, it was less than 2,000. So you
Mm.
kind of, if you didn't know agents, you knew of them by
Right.
reputation,
Right.
what they accomplished. So Steve Murphy and Javier Pena, they were the guys out there when Pablo Escobar met his demise, and they were working for Joe Toff. And I just know that whole crew. I could just
Yeah.
list off a bunch of
Mm.
agents. So I never saw the program Narcos, but I knew the agents who
Right.
are behind the story, and it's true what they did.
Yeah.
Two patriots,
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing.
truly amazing.
They really took on the system both
Hmm.
on our side of the fence and on the criminal side of the fence. And they're very, very brave people because there was a lot of pushback from any number of
From
involved,
everybody, both
from
sides,
everyone on both exactly.
hmm
And they survived and they prevailed.
and
And
they
so
prevailed.
they
Yes.
are really heroes.
Hmm.
I say that every day about our officers with the San Diego Port of San Diego Harbor Police Department. We have 140 sworn, so it's a medium size uh, department. But every single one of those officers is a hero in
Yeah.
my estimation, for especially in these days where they're mandatory overtime and pressure from within and from without to do more with less. And it's one of the reasons why Chief Steinbrook and I formed the foundation. Was we need to be able to give these people all the support we can, that's not available for any number of valid reasons
Hmm.
from the Port of San Diego. It's just
Yes.
not in their mission. So yeah, thank you again for what it was that you did. So tell me about your days as a special. I was a special agent. I don't know if you knew that. I was with Treasury. I worked for what was originally called the Intelligence Division, and then they changed the name in like 1979 or 1980. I can't remember exactly, to the CID. So
Hmm.
essentially IRS, uh, criminal side of things. Very exciting, fun thing. Great career builder. A lot of great stories, which is really, I say this often, all we have at the end of the day are our stories. You
Hmm.
know, at the end of the day, you know, is how you loved is the measure of how you've lived.
Yes.
And and if you love our country and you serve it, then that's really the true measure of who you are.
Yeah. So Jeff, I did know you were a Treasury agent back when they were really special agents. I mean, they really got after it.
Yeah,
And you may know this, but I told Sarah that you have many stories. Some of them will never be told
right,
because what Treasury agents did back then. But the Drug Enforcement Administration grew out of the Treasury Department,
right,
uh, and it predates the FBI. You may or may not know this, but the FBI started out with Treasury agents assigned to the FBI to get it up and running when they were the Bureau of Investigation, before they
mm,
were the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But the Treasury Department, Secret Service grew out of there.
right.
ATF grew out of Treasury internal. So the Untouchables, which I grew up watching, is why I became a DEA agent. They
Really,
were Treasury agents,
that's right,
and so the Federal Bureau of Narcotics grew out of the same organization. We have the same progenitors,
right,
and then from the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, it was the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, BNDD, Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and from there was several other organizations, BDAC, Bureau of Drug Abuse Control,
hmm,
and several other names.
yeah,
1971, the Controlled Substances Act was passed by Congress.
Right.
which is what DEA enforces today. 1973, actually July 1st. So
Wow.
DEA under this name is 50 years old.
I'll be darned.
July 1st, 1973, President Nixon creates the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Mm.
And he brought everybody together, Treasury Customs, Treasury IRS. If you were involved in drug law enforcement, you were summarily put into the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Right.
And everything was fine that way. And now it's kind of back to the way it was before,
Yeah.
where everybody is trying to do drug law enforcement. I don't say that in a parochial manner, but it's DEA special agents were focused exclusively on targeting the most sophisticated criminals that were involved in drug trafficking, transnational organized crime. So
Right.
it was a great honor to be a DEA special agent. But we share the same lineage. And
It's in our DNA.
it is.
I think, of course, anything to do with money, that was
Mhm.
where those agencies really,
Well-
did their core work. And back, quite honestly, back when I was an agent before and after for a short while, people stood up tall when one of us Treasury people, Customs, Secret Service, DEA, DATF,
Mhm.
CID, when they came in the room, they knew something serious was going to go down.
Yeah.
It was a real force. And I think they've really been sort of watered down.
Big time watered down. A Treasury agent came to see you, pack your bag, get your toothbrush.
Yeah.
It'll be years before you're seen again.
I have a good friend who lives in Oklahoma, and he called me up a couple of months ago and he said, 2 IRS special agents just showed up at my house and they wanted to talk to me about, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of chuckled to myself at this is just a fine, fun-loving American guy who has a medium-sized business, wife and kids, and never done anything seriously wrong in his life. And I started laughing to him and I said, things must be really bad back in the IRS offices if they send 2 special agents, highly trained agents, to your home to talk about your filing of a tax return. It ended up being a big nothing. And I thought, first of all, there's nothing criminal here. I mean, what a waste of resources. He was fine, but he was scared to death.
Rightfully so.
Right. Anyway, so I know, like me, there are some stories I can't tell. In fact, it was actually one of the reasons why I left the service was because of what we did and what we investigated, and everything was, it's at a very minimum level confidential and above in terms of our security clearances. I couldn't go home and talk to my wife from my family about, how was your day, honey? I'd say, well, it was fine, blah, blah, blah. But, so I ended up, the only people I could really have those conversations with were other law enforcement people who had similar security clearances. And, from that, it's kind of a slippery slope in terms of how you view people. And I found myself, quite honestly, looking at people for criminality. Just, go to a cocktail party or, a family barbecue, and I'm looking around going, that guy's up to something.
Yeah.
And you get that suspicious nature about you. And it actually started to erode, in my opinion, who I was as a person. And so I looked really hard at that, the hours, the phone calls from my headquarters to my wife saying, yeah, Agent Wohler's not going to be home. We're not sure when he's coming back, blah, blah, blah. And the pressure that put on my family and my life, I decided, no, I'm going to go off and find something that I'm as passionate, if not more, about, and that it doesn't involve, all of this negativity.
Well, I salute you for that, to have the courage to step off, to jump off the platform into something new and different. Because once you've been a federal agent, especially when the Treasury Department was the Treasury Department. You're different. You look at people different. You size people up. When I saw you, I knew, I intuitively, instinctively knew that I just could feel it. I said, I asked Dr. Kieran, and I said, who is he? What is he? Was he a gun carrier? She said, oh yeah. I said, I could see it. I could feel it. Just the way you walked in the room. You'll never not be that person. You stay. Once you stay more than 5-6 years, it's who you are, and you'll always look at people differently, for good or bad. It's just who you are. You don't mean anything bad by it, but you question, you second guess, you just look at people, and then who's in here. I saw you scope the entire restaurant out. I knew you had another way to leave. If I just could see it, I watched your eyes.
Yeah, well, you have the same characteristics about you. And it was really interesting just to talk a little bit about military protocol the other night, about how once you've been a soldier, how you hold your hands, where your body positioning is. It's just ingrained in me. It doesn't hurt that I've been a martial artist forever, but aside from that, the stuff that I learned in the military, even though I was only in 3 years, I still remember my serial number. From the Army, to this day. I remember the serial number on my first weapon, which was an M14 initially.
Well, you step off on your left foot when you got on the stage. You walk. Your left foot hit the stair first. You stood there. Your left hand was over your right, and then you had it at the right angle. That's what I said to you. You're a soldier for life.
Right. Yeah.
Soldier for life.
So you're retired now, sir, and you're consulting?
Yes. So I'm with the Chertoff Group as a senior advisor / consultant, and just joined Sims Software as a member of their advisory council, and I'm also at the Hoover Institute, the veterans program that General H.R. McMaster runs at Stanford.
Yeah.
And then just public speaking at Harvard, at the Naval Postgraduate School. So I think retire is overrated. But I did retire from the Army. I did retire from DEA. Yeah. And, so I enjoy still working, doing.
That's just a piece of paper, General. I had a very, very close friend of my wife's and mine, and he lived to be 97 years old. And he was amazingly fit and bright all of his life. And he used to say, if you rest, you rust. Yeah. And so, that's my philosophy. Although I'm just young. I'm only 76 years old. I'm just a kid, just a baby,
And the martial arts is keeping you that way.
Well, and that's another mental thing, that just awareness, confidence in myself, not to be able to engage into conflict, but to know that I can avoid it. Yes. My ego is not in the fight. I don't need to have a fist fight with someone, but certainly I'm going to defend myself or my family. But I'd have a quick story. So I was at this conference in Florida, a martial arts event. It was all senior level black belts. And there were 3 10th degree Shotokan masters.
It's my style, Shotokan.
Yeah. Sitting up on the stage, and they were watching all of us sparring. And the most senior, Hideko Nishiyama-san, stands up and says, "Stop," out loud. And he points at me in the middle. And I had been sparring with this, 30-year-old guy who was much stronger and faster than I was. And Nishiyama-san said, "I want everyone to look at Sensei Wohler's chest." And so the whole class is looking at my chest, and he said, "His heart is smiling.
Mm.
That's why he's going to beat that guy.
Yeah. And you knew it. You knew
I
it.
I knew it. I wasn't, I didn't have my ego in this kumite,
Yeah.
this sparring event.
Hmm.
I was there practicing my art
Yeah.
form. I
You were
was
having fun.
I was enjoying the
Hmm.
moment, you
Yeah.
know. You know.
I like what you say that you know what you can do, so you can walk away. I've walked away from many conflicts because sensei is not really fair when you know how, based on this training that you received, what you can do. So
Right,
it's easier to just walk away
right,
and take pride in the fact that you had the discipline to do that, and
right.
you weren't goaded into a confrontation.
Hmm, hmm.
You know you're going to win.
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
this. Well, I mean, you never really know. That
yeah.
there,
You're
there,
fairly sure
you hope
you
that you
probably
can.
win. You'll probably win.
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
odds are in your favor.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So you studied Shotokan?
I did. I did. I was the only American. I lived in the Bahamas for 7 years
Hmm.
when I was with DEA, and I was the only American on the Bahamian team. And we would go to Japan and different
Oh,
tournaments. So it was quite fun. Yeah.
I'll bet.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
studied Goju earlier in my life.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah, Goju-Ryu. Yeah, but I got fairly good, and my knees are shot now, so I don't do anything anymore. But I could actually ich ni san chi ichi achi ku ju ju ich ju ni ju san. I could count all the way,
Right.
um, and knew a lot of words just from going to tournaments in Japan.
You don't lose that. The
No,
dojo I've trained at for the last 25 years is most everything we do is in Japanese.
yeah,
So yeah, when I start hearing those words, I'm looking around. Okay, what's
I'm
going
saying
on?
it. Yeah, yeah.
So it's funny because I started out in Goju-Ryu as well.
Hmm.
I have a first degree black belt in Goju-Ryu, uh, and then I had conflict with the instructor. I thought he wasn't a moral person
Mm.
and didn't align with my viewpoint, and so I started training with Nishiyama Sensei, he trained with Funakoshi Sensei,
Horikoshi, yeah, the
who's
father of
father of modern traditional karate,
Shotokan.
and he was just this amazing man who had, I don't know, 400,000 followers. Nishiyama Sensei did.
Hmm.
Uh, Passed away a number of years ago, but I remember I was in Ecuador one time working, and I was literally out in the middle of just nowhere on this dirt road and driving by, and I saw this sign out of the corner of my eye, corner of my eye, and it said Nishiyama Sensei Dojo. And I thought, there can't be 20 people in this whole village here. And yet, sure enough, I stopped the car, went in, and had a
Yeah.
conversation with
Wow.
this sensei there who was teaching kids, mostly children,
Hmm.
he used Nishiyama's name for his dojo. And so when I got back, I took a picture of this guy and sent it to Nishiyama Sensei, and he goes, "See, I'm everywhere."
Wow, that is great.
Yeah,
The discipline that young people receive from martial arts, the katas,
hmm,
the forms for people who don't know, to memorize those katas and practice them, and then get in tournaments and try to win, just gives you something. And I know as an agent, I did quite a bit of undercover, and
hmm,
I could always explain the weapon. I had a gun with me all the time,
right,
but how quick can you get to that gun where you
right,
might have to defend yourself or block, swing, kick? So that gave me a lot of confidence when I had an undercover role.
right.
Yeah,
Well, that my weapon was never my go-to
right.
position.
Hmm.
My go-to position was, first of all, threat assessment,
Right.
even before I walked in the door.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, look for exits and all that good stuff, and sum up who's armed, who isn't armed, and
Yeah.
even by their body language, whether they're armed or not. I'm thinking, okay, that that's the first guy I'm going to take down.
Yeah, who's first? Who's first?
It's the biggest threat in the room is the
Yep.
first one that's going to go down. And but you're right, it's that dedication. And at some point, like in most all martial arts styles, there's a tradition where as you grow in rank, as you get into your levels, your san levels, first degree, second, third, fourth, whatever degree black belt you have to then assume a teaching role
Yes.
within that dojo. And
Share the art. Share the art.
I loved these children.
Mhm.
We would take kids as young as 5, 6 years old,
Mhm.
and they were fun, but that was more like babysitting.
Yeah.
But what I liked is when the parents would come in, they're dragging this, usually a boy, and he's 9, 10, 11 years old, and you can just tell he's got an attitude, and he's his parents saying, he's disrespectful, he doesn't blah blah blah, he won't do his homework and all that. And I just loved taking that smart ass kid and just, he probably did more push-ups in the years that he was with me than he ever imagined in his whole life. But at the end of the day, most of those kids turned around and became respectful, and they had a purpose. They adapted, and hopefully they carry that just like you and I have throughout.
Sure they do. I'm sure they do.
Their whole. I'll be out with my wife or family somewhere, just unsuspecting, somebody will yell, "Sensei, hi Sensei," and you go, "Oh, that feels good." I'm sure it's the same with you when they go,
"Oh yeah,
General Wohler, right?"
I've been away, they say, General, I've been away from the arts. The last time I really did something serious is almost 20 years ago. I still remember everything, but I was with Carlos Montalvo in Puerto Rico, and you may or may not have heard of him, but a really great master. But you are touching people when you share martial arts. You're touching people,
right?
And you're setting them up for success. Properly motivated people will amaze you with what they can accomplish, and it just takes the discipline, and martial arts provides it. It just does, and then you test it in a tournament.
Yeah. They don't let me compete anymore. I judge.
You judge.
I say, come on, I can take that guy.
Yeah. We can't.
Probably not. Why test it? Go out on top, as they say. Well, General Walker, this has been an absolute treat for me to spend quality time with a gentleman like yourself who's accomplished so much in your lifetime. I know you're going to go on and continue that, especially with your role in these nonprofits and for-profit companies and consulting. You have so much to offer, and it's just wonderful that you give back, which is why I started this podcast 4 years ago. I just want to recognize people like yourself. So thank you again.
You're very, very welcome, Jeff. Good to be with you.
And I want to thank my guests for tuning in today, and look forward to hearing from you. My next guest is Commissioner Rafael Castellanos from the Port of San Diego. And very interesting man. I'm looking forward to my conversation with him.